Hello and welcome to short highlights of the 14th edition of the Grand Prix Cycliste de Montreal, the penultimate men's World Tour one-day race of the year, and crucially, a year before the UCI Road World Championships come to Montreal too. This race will still happen in a year's time, but it will be 2 weeks before the very same course hosts those Road World Championships. Tadej Pogacar on the line as the defending champion, Julian Alaphilippe there as the winner of Friday's Grand Prix Cycliste de Quebec. Alaphilippe in really good form. This race, though, a full, just slightly over 2,000 metres more elevation than Friday's race in Quebec. Slightly shorter, but definitely harder, and longer climbs too. 4 climbs per lap, including the nearly 2 kilometre long Camillon-Eudes Way, which is the main climb and the hardest climb on the race. Just after the start, in actual fact, climbing up through and beyond the forest and taking in the 2 enormous cemeteries and the University of Montreal as well at the northern edge of the course. 160 riders started, pretty much exactly the same field that had started the Grand Prix Cycliste de Quebec on Friday. You can also see highlights of that where you're watching these highlights. This was the first breakaway of the day, went fairly soon. There were 6 riders in it as well. 2 from Ineos Grenadiers, including AJ August and Artem Schmidt, both the American riders for them, of course. Pascal Encorn was in there for Soudal-QuickStep, Jürgen Nordhagen, the Norwegian, for Visma Lease Bike, and then Frank van den Broek, the Dutchman, for Picnic PostNL, and Victor Lafay of Decathlon Agir Desert La Mondiale. They weren't allowed to have too much space, though, and they were eventually joined by 9 more to make 17 riders out front. It was a big group, and remarkably, actually, they did work pretty well together. This is about halfway through the race where this came together. Pascal Encorn was in there with them, but crashed out when he hit a pothole in the road. Then we started to see also riders being distanced from that group itself. There were some very strong riders that come across them. Jan Tratnik was probably amongst the strongest of them too. Gradually, though, just like we would with the World Championship, really, this is a World Championship-worthy course. We were seeing riders in the tents at the side of the road having withdrawn lap by lap, this being a 17-lap race as well. We weren't expecting maybe to see Wout van Aert being distanced at the point he was with 70 kilometres to go, but up front, some of the youngsters in the leading group stretching their legs. Alex Baudin looking the best of them, actually, the Frenchman for EF, who'd placed 3 riders in that leading group. That was until UAE Team Emirates decided to really turn up the heat, and it was not far off the back of that move from Alex Baudin. We were watching the group being whittled down, the breakaways themselves have been caught, many of whom were hanging on with what was becoming the Peloton, and that was really it. It was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Julian Alaphilippe himself working so hard to try and stay in contact with the back. He was back there with Paul Lapera and others. Michael Matthews himself, a double winner of this race, a winner of this race and Grand Prix Quebec way back in 2018, having to withdraw as well. And we were seeing lots of riders doing exactly that. That was the tail end of this group. This was the point at which Brandon McNulty, the American for UAE Team Emirates, was ready to do his turn, but didn't do the turn. He took off. Quinn Simmons went with him, and Quinn Simmons was looking really good as he rode across to Brandon McNulty. Then came this guy, first of all seated, winding his way across, nice and casually, from Tadej Pogacar, the world champion and defending champion of this race from 1 year ago, just calmly seated, riding his way up behind Quinn Simmons, Brandon McNulty, and they were joined by a very strong Louis Barret, the Frenchman for Intermarché Wanty. Louis Barret, the best of the Frenchmen, on a really, really good ride as well. Behind them, the group, knowing that 2 of them that were non-UAE Team Emirates riders had flown the nest, there was quite a few more attacks to come as well. Riley Sheehan was one of a number of Americans doing a brilliant ride, and then Louis Barret was dropped as well under the pressure that was being laid down by Brandon McNulty at the top. Then went Tadej Pogacar. With 23k to go, he took off. Now, we were assuming that was it. Quinn Simmons had to do this. There was no other way of doing it. He went after Tadej Pogacar. Managed to gap Brandon McNulty too, but it was a big arse to get across to this man because, as we know only too well, when he goes solo by himself out front, he's normally not caught. And on this occasion, he was caught by his own teammate. He did ease up a little bit, only just though for Brandon McNulty. And we were left with Pogacar and McNulty, the 2 UAE riders out front, being chased in third by Quinn Simmons, the American road race champion. An American and a Slovenian went to the line together. They'd had a conversation, and Tadej Pogacar eventually reached across and put a hand on the shoulder of Brandon McNulty, who appeared to be nursing a softening front tyre as they came towards the line together. 209 kilometres of racing in this World Tour race, and an opportunity for Brandon McNulty to get the biggest World Tour one-day win of his career. In fact, his first one as well, to go with World Tour stage racing victories as well. The American getting a fantastic victory via team performance that meant that team has won the last 4 editions of this race, and crucially, they have now become, along with Columbia HTC of back in 2009, the winningest team in the history of the sport, level with Columbia from all that time ago. And who would bet against them beating that in the coming days? On this one day in particular, they've got 2 victories. If you look elsewhere, you'll see what I mean. Brandon McNulty, though, on this occasion, the American, the winner, with his own teammate, Tadej Pogacar, alongside him with 2 weeks to go to the defence of his World Championship title. There was the top 10. We did have a sprint behind for 8th, 9th and 10th. Aaron Barrow-Strong and Bettiol doing that. But Tadej Pogacar, second to Brandon McNulty, with 3 Americans in the top 4. Quinn Simmons taking the final spot by himself, and Neilson Powless holding off the rest to finish in 4th. Another fantastic edition in 1 year's time. This will be the World Championships.